Hi everyone, I'm Red Eagle. Welcome to Dawn Skaii, Chapter 1, Lost in Translation, Episode 1. Just as a quick introduction, there is one thing I've changed on my character sheet. I wasn't happy with the call sign, which was Shadow. It didn't have the vibe I was looking for, so I've changed it to Deadeye. It's only a minor thing, really, in the grand scheme of things, but just thought I'd make a note of that. I'm not particularly pleased with the starship name of Stardust either. It's not really giving off the right impression of my character, but my character is also kind of, that's the name of the ship, that's the name of the ship. I'm not going to change that. It's not what I would have chosen, but hey, yeah, that's life. I'm drifting through deep space. The ship's on autopilot as I eat. My first meal since my last scalp. A battle on Larsport, a trading post in the Ferris Drift sector. I went there for a much needed rest, but of course the Skada had other plans. We overcame the Skada threat, and in the process the Skada commander was destroyed, forcing the remaining army to retreat. As is my custom, I took a piece of one of the tangled bodies of a Skada machine, in this case a breastplate. These are my trophies, my rewards. Sometimes I'll find a deranged Skada fanatic who will pay very good price for this relic. As I'm sat there with my thoughts, I just decide to scratch away at one of the grazes among the dents of the breastplate, and I notice a discoloring. Something I've never noticed before on any of the other pieces I've taken over the years. I grab my knife and scratch away at a handful of other parts I've taken before. Nothing. Just the usual silvery metallic colour that you'd expect to see underneath the gold-plated surface. But this new piece, it had 2 shades of grey underneath. I scratch away hurriedly with my blade. Flakes of gold scatter across the floor and eventually reveal what looks like some sort of code, or writing, a text. I scan it, but it isn't recognised, even by my translator. I ask Echo if they've ever seen anything like it. Negative. But my utility bot does mention someone who may be able to help. Someone Echo worked with many years ago. An archaeologist, a historian by the name of Kaiser Volkov. Their last known location was on a space station called Luminous. And I guess we're heading to Luminous to find Kaiser Volkov. I've started creating my sector, Ferris Drift. This is where my ship is at the moment. We've got a passageway going off there, a passageway to Luminous, and from Luminous to Larsport. Possibly should have maybe put a passage here, but then why would there just be a random passage up there? Got a couple of other passages going, one that way, one down here this way, which there'll probably be something down here. But as I've said previously, I'm going to build this as I go. I've put Kaiser Volkov on Luminous. We don't actually know if he's there, but that's his last known location. I wasn't sure really within Stargazer if there was a way of just creating an NPC without attaching them to somewhere, because there's going to be characters in the Forge that are just somewhere, we don't know where they are until we find them. So I wasn't sure if there was a way of creating an NPC without putting them on a location. If anyone knows that, please obviously let me know. But I've put them here on Luminous for the moment. So as I set a course, I want to keep quite vigilant. I want to, be wary of what my surroundings are. I've just come out of a battle on Larsport, and it won't take long for that message to get back to the Skada control, and they will be out for my blood, as they probably always are anyway. They must know who I am if I am a Skada killer. So I'm going to roll, set a course, roll with wits, and I get a weak hit. I get a 5, and the challenge dice were 4 and 9. So I need to suffer a complication. I could make her suffer with some of my stats, but I think I'm going to go with the other one, and I'm going to face a peril. Now, I think when I did my last series, I took the word peril quite literally, as in this is kind of life or death moment, and I don't think it necessarily means that. So rather than sort of put myself into a peril, I'm just going to have a complication. And as I approach the station, I'm hailed by what appears to be quite angry or forceful, or shall we say stern security. They've picked up a signal from my ship indicating that it was recently involved in an altercation using firearms. And I think, well, that was probably me firing at some of the fleeing Skada from last port. So, long story short, they don't want me to dock. I am able to mark progress, but I have suffered this complication. And I now try to convince them that I'm the good girl out of all this. Okay, I'm the one who I defeated the Skada at last port. I'm the one who drove them away. You know, I'm not the evil one here. I'm not the bad one here. So I need to roll a compel move, and this will be rolling plus heart, and I get another weak hit. So I rolled I got a 5 again, and the challenge dice were a 1 and 5. So I can take 1 momentum, but they have certain conditions. So they're going to allow me to dock, but they do have certain conditions, and those conditions are, I think they're going to let me dock, but they are going to escort me. They're going to have someone with me, and they're going to take me to some kind of arrivals hall, or just somewhere where they would take someone like me that they're untrustful of. And so I'm going to face some sort of question, an interrogation. I'm going to be interrogated by their, I mean, I don't want to say immigration because I'm not immigrating, but that kind of, like an arrivals department, to face interrogation. They leave me alone with my thoughts for hours before they take me in. And then they start the questions. What was the purpose of my visit to Luminous? I tell them the truth. I've got nothing to hide, and I'm not doing anything illegal. I tell them I'm looking for someone. Their last known location was this station. And who is it you're looking for? Someone who might be able to translate a code. At least I think it's a code. It could just be text, some sort of writing, but my translator doesn't recognize it. What sort of code? Where did you find it? And why is it important? I think it might be a code used by the Skada. This causes the interrogators to fidget, and they share a glance at each other. More questions come, and I answer. There's no point in me lying at all. As I said, I've got nothing to hide, and it'll be in their interests eventually if they let me go and get on with my business. It's only a matter of time until the Skada come back here to attack again. It's been a few years since their last attempt to take Luminous. Eventually they ask, what's your connection with the Skada? And obviously here they're quite distrustful again, and do they think I'm working for them? I tell them the same thing I tell everybody. Have you heard of Yard Vale? Quantum base? How about the Battle of Kraken? They don't flinch, but I can tell the wheels are turning between their ears. What if I said, Project Caps Lock? There's a silence. A bead of sweat forms on one of their foreheads. Eventually, and tentatively, one of them asks in a croak, You? I simply nod. They've got it. They've heard of me. They know who I am. But do they believe me? Well, we've got to find out. I've got to roll a compel move, roll plus heart, and it's another weak hit. I roll a 6, and the challenge dice are 7 and 4. So they believe me, but they want something in exchange. So this station's quite lawless, so I think maybe these guys are a bit corrupt. And I'm going to take 1 from my supply, and that will act as kind of some sort of payment. I give them some money, credits, whatever you want to call it in the forge. So I give them some payment, and they shake my hand and say, "You're free to go." So my supply is now down to 4, and let's go find this guy who can help me translate this code. So I have a discussion with Echo, and we decide the best chance of finding Volkov at this time of the evening would be bar 77. It's a bar that he used to use quite frequently when Echo was working with him, or knew him. It's also the most popular bar on Luminous. It's too late in the day for him to be lecturing or anything like that, so we obviously decide not to go to the research centre, and we don't know where he lives. So, at the very least, we might find someone who knows him and might be able to give us some information. So, we head to bar 77. So, I'm going to set a course for this bar, and I get a strong hit. I get a 6, and the challenge dice were 4 and 2. So, I reach the destination, and the situation is favourable. So, I get to this bar, and it appears friendly. Everyone's quite happy and in a sort of jovial mood. Maybe there's some sort of festival going on, or the drinks flowing. People enjoy themselves. There's music. There's lots of kind of street artists, vendors, and people. Buskers. There's a bit of music. There's perhaps a magician, and it's generally just it's kind of different to what you would find a bar or a pub on Earth today. It's very different. There's everyone's out to just make us a quick buck as much as they can and just enjoy themselves. So you get a lot of these kind of street vendors, if you like, and street artists. So we take our chances. We don't think we're going to have any problems. Um, it's kind of self-regulated, so people there are careful not to sort of get out of hand and let the drink get the better of them, and things don't usually turn bad. But they are quite wary of strangers, and myself, particular, am a stranger, and it's unlikely they're going to recognise Echo. So we've got to kind of be vigilant and be sensible. So we go to the serving counter. It's a bot. I imagine it's some sort of bot or android who's serving, and we get this drink, and it's kind of sweet, light bodied. It's alcoholic, but it's fairly weak. But I'm quite hardened to alcohol anyway in my life of being a bit of a rogue and a bit of a tough sort of person. I hunt these very evil beings, so I'm obviously living quite a hardened life. Echo looks around for any faces that he might recognise from the time that he worked with Kaiser Volkov, and I'm going to roll on the Oracle actually to find out if there is anyone that Echo recognises. So yes, no, I'm going to say it's 50-50 chance. And the answer is no. That's not to say that there isn't someone there that he used to know or that he recognises, but at the moment he doesn't see anyone that he recognises. But it makes things difficult. I mean, I could just go around asking people at random if they've heard of Volkov, if they know him, if they know where he is. But I think that might draw suspicion, particularly from a stranger. So I'm going to need to sort of just like befriend some people, I guess. So yeah, just get chatting to people really. So I scan the room and I see that there's a few tables that people are playing games, cards mainly, I guess, and I'm we've already established that I play poker, so I'm drawn to those tables. And I casually walk over to one of them, and I watch for a little bit, and one of the guys there says, "Do you want to play?" So opportunity arises when a new game starts up, and one of the players leaves. So I take a seat. I do get a funny look from a couple of the other players, maybe, weary of strangers and all that sort of thing. But I plonk myself down, and I get dealt a hand. And there's money on this game, so I can't really afford to lose. I've already paid off the interrogators, so I don't really want to lose any more supply at the moment. But I'm really just here to get information. So winning or losing doesn't really matter, but I would rather win because I don't want to lose any more supply. So I'm going to use some of my trickery. I've got sleight of hand skills and maybe a bit of a magician myself. I mean, I know we've established that magic doesn't exist, but that's real magic doesn't exist. This is kind of sleight of hand stuff. Magic tricks. So I'm going to, I guess I would roll secure an advantage. I mean, we're not in a fight, but we are trying to get an advantage in a game. And I think if I get a strong hit, we'll say that I've won that hand, or and we'll just progress it. So I will create a progress track for this, and I'll call it poker game in bar 77. I'm going to set it to troublesome, and I'm going to roll on shadow. So on secure and advantage, you succeed on a strong hit or a weak hit, but you get to choose between taking 2 momentum or adding 1 to my next move, as long as it's not a progress move. So let's roll on this then, and I get a weak hit. Got a 8, and the challenge dice were a 1 and an 8. So I win the hand, and I'm going to choose 2 momentum, I think. So I'm going to mark progress as well, that this poker game has progressed. In the next hand, again, I'm going to attempt to use some trickery and win the hand. I know this might seem a bit repetitive and perhaps even not the right way to go about things, really, but as I say, I'm just trying to befriend some people here and get chatting to them. Having said that, if I win all their money, they might not want to befriend me. So I'm going to roll plus shadow again, and this time it's a weak hit. Sorry, it's a strong hit. I got a 5, and the challenge die were both 3s, so it's a weak hit with a match. So I'm going to say I win the next 2 hands. And so I'm going to mark progress twice. So I'm down to my last opponent. It's all or nothing, and I need to take this game. So I'm going to roll on a move called Finish the Scene. And so I'm rolling against the progress. So that's a 9, and yep, I get a strong hit. Obviously, it's a 9 against the challenge dice, which was 7 and 4. So I win the game and take the money. I'm going to add 1 to my supply. They seem angry, but they know better not to cause any trouble, and I pacify them by buying a round of drinks. I think because I want this to progress. I don't want to take the risk of getting a miss on whether they, cause trouble with me or not. So I'm just going to put my supply back down to 4 and just say that I've brought them all a round of drinks. They're quite happy with that. It's not just the ones that were playing, but maybe their friends as well. It's pretty much paid for the get the money off just one. And they seem, as I say, they seem quite happy with that, and they're happy to have a drink with me. So this is an opportunity now where I can start chatting to them. And so we start chatting away, and we're sharing stories about our time in, our lives, what we've done, our expeditions, and I don't go into too many details. I don't really want to give away who I am and what I do. One or two of them might have a rough idea. They might have heard of me, but they might not necessarily know my face and know that I am the Skada killer. I say the Skada killer. There may be others out there. But during the conversation, I do drop the name Kaiser Volkov, and I'm going to roll on the oracle. Do any of them know him? And I think it's likely. I think it's likely someone would have heard of him because he's a lecturer at the research centre. historian, archaeologist. So I'm going to say likely, and the oracle says yes. So there's a lady there, quite an attractive lady. Gonna give her the name Kai Freeman. She knows him, and so I ask her where I might be able to find him. So I'm going to gather information. I'm going to run the gather information move. So I'm rolling plus wits, and I get a miss. All right. Okay, so I rolled a 4, and the challenge die were 6 and 4. So I unearth a threat or gather information that undermines my progress. So what could we have? What could I do to? How about he's missing? No one knows where he is. He's been missing. Yeah, because I've got to pay the price here. And I think he's. I'm gonna have it that he's missing. So that's really gonna set me back. No one knows where he is. He's been missing for say a month. Some people are obviously worried. Some people don't care. Obviously, the people at the research centre do because it's kind of his job. So I'm going to mark progress on the find out if Volkov is still in Luminous, because I have got information now that this track really may end with me never finding Volkov, which is really going to set this story back. Okay, I decide to take a trip to the research centre. I think that's probably a good place to sort of start a search, because she doesn't know where he lives either. But she does agree to take me to the research centre, so I won't do the set a course move. And so it's all we get there, but it's all closed up. It's locked and bolted, or digitally locked. So I need to find a way in, and I think security on Luminous isn't really very well done. A lot of people just don't care. A lot of people, because it's quite lawless and it's quite self-regulated. But people, I mean, particularly for a research centre, what are people going to do in a research centre? What are people going to steal in the research centre that they wouldn't already have? In terms of entertainment or personal possessions. I'm trying to think of like gadgets and things. I don't think a research centre would, especially one where it's kind of history and archaeology is sort of taught. So what I'm going to do is, and again, a lot of security can be paid off. So I've got to find a way of breaking in. I send Kai away because I think if anything goes wrong, I don't really want to see anyone else get caught up in any trouble. And I think Kai is probably someone I'm going to possibly use in the future. We'll see. So I thank her and everything, and she gives me her contact details, because I think if I am going to use her again, or have a bring her into the story later, I think it makes sense that she gives me her contact details. We um, bump our communication devices, perhaps touch them together, and it transfers contact details. And she seems concerned about Volkov as well, so she's kind of like, if you find out anything, please let us know. But I ask Echo, being a utility bot, if they can hack the lock. So to roll on a companion or a utility bot, I need to roll against his health, which is currently 4. I think I'm doing this right. I get a strong hit because I roll a 4 and his health is 4. That gives me an 8, and the challenge die were 5 and 3. I think I've done that right. Obviously, correct me, please, if I'm wrong. So I'll take 1 momentum, and the lock was pretty easy. It's more of a decoy or a deterrent than an actual really decent lock. Again, affordability and resources, and he just didn't really. They don't really care too much for the security. It's a deterrent and a decoy. You see a lot. You think, okay, it's not worth Not worth breaking into this one because it's got a security lock or whatever, an alarm of some sort. So yeah, it's not difficult to hack, especially for Echo, a utility bot. So unlocks it pretty easily, and we walk inside. We find a map on the wall once inside that tells you the different departments of the research center, and we find where Volkov's office is. So once I get there, I guess I need to search for something. I need to search for something that will give us a clue as to where he might be. The first thing I notice on entering the office is that this is more of an apartment. This he lived here. He There's everything. There's just evidence that there's a kitchen, there's a bathroom, there's a living area. I mean, it's all a little bit of a mess. Like he was always really busy or always working on different projects and things, and there's stuff around. But this is definitely a living area, and maybe that's why there was not great security around, because he kind of was the security. He was always around. He was always here, whether he was working or not. So I'm going to explore a waypoint, roll plus wits, and it's a weak hit. I roll a 3, and the challenge dice were a 1 and 3. So I can plus 1 momentum, and I find something interesting. I find a notebook, and it's an unusual notebook for this sort of world, this time period. It's one from the old times. It's a leather bound paper, and it's handwritten notes. I mean, people still use them. Rarely, it's people who kind of want to preserve that historical, and I suppose it fits Volkov's character and personality. He's a historian. He wants to try and keep these sort of things alive. There are planets out there with trees, so paper can still be made. And I spend a bit of time just flipping through the pages, again, just looking for a clue where he might be, where he might be going. Is there any names of any places? Is there any sort of diary note? Go to this place on this date. Just trying to search for anything really. I'm struggling to kind of think of something really. I mean, how do I move this forward? Because okay, I'm going to ask the oracle because it's just suddenly dawned on me. Maybe he's in trouble. Maybe he's in trouble and he's running from something or someone. So just a bit of narrative here rather than rolling on this. I'm looking around the room, and there's clothes all over the place. There's a wardrobe that's been left open. There's just evidence that maybe he left quite hastily, and it's probably why he left this notebook as well, because it's the sort of thing he'd probably keep with him. It's not a full notebook, there's still empty pages, and it just appears as though it's something he writes in quite regularly. So maybe I'm going to roll on the oracle and ask, does the evidence lean towards, does it appear that he is on the run, that he left this place hurriedly, or do I find evidence that he may be on the run? I, I probably haven't worded that particularly well. I really just need to get this story going. So I'm going to roll on the oracle. I'm going to say it's likely, because he just vanished. He just vanished a month ago. So I'm going to roll likely, and it's a yes. So yeah, he's. We strongly believe he's on the run. I'm thinking maybe he left some sort of code. I'm going to roll on my gear. I'm going to do a gear check. That's what it's called, isn't it? A gear check. To see if I've got an item that might improve my search results. I'm thinking like some sort of ultraviolet light or something that might show some writing somewhere that he's kept hidden. That might be quite cool. So I'm going to roll plus supply. It's a miss. Okay, I rolled a 5 and the challenge dice were 9 and 5. So I have nothing that can help me. Right. I think I'm going to bring this episode to an end because I'm going to need to think here of where I can go next. It's probably a good time, this episode anyway. I don't know what it's going to come out at, but I think it's a good place to end it. I'm kind of I'm at a dead end, really. Okay, I've had one more idea. You're going to have to wait until the next episode to find out what that is. So thank you everybody for watching. I think I'm quite happy with how it panned out. Maybe there's one or two things I would have changed, but that's the way it goes, and it's in the bag now. I think it's definitely better than my last efforts, and that's thanks to the great community, really, that Ironsworn and Ironsworn Starforged has built. There's some really good stuff out there that I've been watching and listening to, and I've had conversations with people as well, and all sorts of tips and hints, and it's just been really good. So thank you everybody, and I'll see you all again soon for episode 2 of Dawn Skaii, chapter 1, Lost in Translation.